You're probably used to hearing that the average UK house costs around £300,000.
Right. It's a very standard measuring stick.
Exactly. A nice semi-detached, maybe a small garden. But today, in this deep dive, we are taking that stick and, well, just snapping it.
We really are.
Yeah, so we're looking at some recent Rightmove data that was highlighted in Money Week. And the mission today is to dive straight into the absolute extremes of the UK property market. I mean, streets where that 300 grand wouldn't even cover the deposit.
Because when you look at the top end of this data, the whole concept of average it completely disintegrates. We are forced to really look at how wealth physically maps itself across the country.
And to map it, I mean, we really have to start at the epicenter. London's baseline is already steep, right? The average home there is about £553,000, which is over double the national figure.
Double. Yeah, it's staggering.
But that's just the baseline. The absolute pinnacle is Winnington Road in Barnet. It is the UK's most expensive street, with an average asking price of £12.5 million.
Wow. And Chester Square in Westminster is close behind at $11.5 million.
Right, and looking at those numbers, I mean, 9 out of the top 10 streets are in London. It feels less like a capital city and more like a completely separate economic state. Like, does a unified UK property market even exist at this point?
Well, the data strongly suggests it doesn't. London, especially boroughs like Westminster and Barnet, it operates as this distinct ecosystem that's completely detached from the domestic economy.
Detached how? Like, practically speaking.
So a £12 million house price isn't driven by local wages or UK interest rates.
Yeah.
Those ultra-prime properties function more like gold bullion.
Oh, interesting. Like safe deposit boxes.
Exactly. Safe deposit boxes for international wealth. Buyers from across the globe use these specific postcodes to just park capital, which insulates that micromarket from whatever is happening in the rest of the UK.
Okay, that explains the massive concentration in London. But wait, there is one exception in that top 10 list, right? East Road in Elmbridge, Surrey, which clocks in at £8.8 million.
Yes, the lone non-London street on the list.
But I have to challenge the idea that this is a true non-London street. Surrey is the commuter belt. Isn't an £8 million street in Elmbridge just London's global wealth physically spilling over the M25? Can we really call that the regional market?
That is a really crucial distinction to make. Surrey is geographically outside London, sure, but economically, its ultra-prime market is entirely tethered to it.
So it's still part of that same bubble.
Right. To find the actual ceiling of the regional UK economy, you have to look way past the commuter belt. When you examine regions that are wholly dependent on local industries rather than global wealth, the drop-off is practically vertical.
A vertical drop-off. Give me an example of that.
Well, in the East Midlands, the absolute priciest street is Main Street in Charnwood, averaging about $1.2 million.
Okay, $1.2 million. And if we keep going north, the contrast gets even starker. The top spot in Scotland is Drumshea Gardens in Edinburgh at just £560,000.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. That's the most expensive street in the country, and it's basically the average price of a standard London home. I mean, how can the absolute ceiling of one market be the ground floor of another? Is luxury just entirely relative to your postcode?
It absolutely is, because Scotland's property ceiling is dictated by local reality. A £560,000 maximum average means the market is constrained by what local professionals can actually earn.
Right, like doctors, lawyers, business owners in Edinburgh.
Exactly. They can only earn and borrow so much. The ceiling is defined by local industries and domestic mortgages, whereas London's ceiling is defined by global billionaires paying in cash.
Cash, wow.
Yeah. So this data isn't just a list of expensive houses. It's really a map of a fractured economy where the mechanisms of wealth generation are entirely different depending on where you stand.
So for you listening, whether you're trying to get on the housing ladder or you're just fascinated by how money moves, keeping these mechanisms in mind puts daily property headlines into sharp perspective.
It really does. It serves as a reminder to always question the aggregate data. I mean, a national average means very little when the components are this disconnected.
Exactly. Which leaves a rather heavy thought for you to chew on. If the absolute peak of the property market in Scotland, £560,000, is dwarfed 22 times over by the peak in London, what does that actually say about national wealth distribution?
It's a stark comparison.
It really is. If our economic measuring sticks are so wildly different, are we really building the same country?